Jessica Lewis is a certified personal trainer, and she's a wellness coach and the founder of Sculpt Your Life in Claymont, Delaware, where she helps veterans and everyday people in the public improve not only their physical health, but also their emotional and mental wellness as well through mindful exercise, wellness, and nutrition. Jessica, welcome. Jessica, wellness. Jessica, welcome. I may keep that in. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to have you here. Tell me about your niche. You have this unique niche that I think most people aren't in, where you use a Eastern medicine philosophy of T'ai Chi Chih, if I'm using that verbiage correctly, to help people improve in their health and wellness and fitness. Explain that more for people.
I can't actually figure out why more certified personal trainers don't do what I do, because it seems to me that offering sort of the three legs of the stool is the easiest way to just meet people wherever they want or need to be met. Because, I mean, you know from your work, there's lots of people in the world who either can't exercise differently or won't, you know? And there's lots of people in the world who either can't or won't eat any differently. But there's nobody on the planet that I've ever encountered, and I can't even imagine someone who can't do Tai Chi Chih. And the research is so profound about this particular moving mindfulness practice that just like 15 or 20 minutes a day can make a huge difference. So I figure if I can't get anybody to do anything else that I tell them to do, if all they did was add a little bit of Tai Chi Chih, their lives are still going to get healthier very, very fast, and then it might cause a positive snowball effect in which they might be more receptive to doing other things that just simply make them feel good. It's all about, as far as I'm concerned, all I do is help people feel better, feel more peaceful, feel safer, or at least more secure with whatever's going on. And there's a lot of crazy things happening right now, right?
We live in an interesting timeline. For the people who are not familiar with Tai Chi Chih, and I was one of them several years ago, I just called it all Tai Chi. What's the difference between Tai Chi and Tai Chi Chih?
That's a super good question. And I think actually if I had a penny for every time somebody asked me that question, I would never have to work again. And it's such a common question. So here's my little elevator speech. Before we ever had this conversation, did you know that there are lots of different kinds of Tai Chi in the world? Did you know that? Oh, there you go. So right there, there's that. There's lots of different kinds of Tai Chi in the world. And some are as ancient as 3,500 BC, you know? And some are only 50 years old, right? But you can lump all Tai Chi practices into just one of two categories. Are they martial? Do they have some sort of martial application? So in other words, are they essentially slow-mo karate, you know? Or are they nothing other than mindfulness in motion, right? And there's actually only one Tai Chi practice that falls into the second category, and it's Tai Chi Chih. And here's the other way you can tell the difference. Most people don't know that when they say Tai Chi, most of the time, unconsciously, they're using a nickname. Most Tai Chi practices, if you look at the actual name, I guess in Mandarin, you know, what is the name of this practice? It's Tai Chi Chuan, and Chuan means fist, and Tai Chi means supreme ultimate. So you can tell right off the bat, if you're dealing with a Tai Chi Chuan practice, you're dealing with a slow-moving, very powerful martial art, right? Cha, on the other hand, means supreme ultimate, and Tai Chi means knowledge of. So Tai Chi Chih is knowledge of the supreme ultimate. You can tell right away. It's just something very different. Again, you know, the way I look at it is I'm actually qualified to teach several different styles of Tai Chi and Qigong, but most other styles are considered more challenging to learn. So again, my goal is to help people feel as good as they can as quickly as possible. Why would I spend time trying to indoctrinate them into something that it could take them 3 or 4 years to kind of get, when they could start to feel better in just a couple of hours and do it on their own in 15 or 20 minutes a day? I mean, to my way of thinking, it's just the fastest way to get someone to where I want them to be, which is just feeling better.
And this is something that most fitness trainers do not know about. How did you get involved with this?
That's a good question too. All right, so back when you and I first met, do you remember that I was, 20 plus years ago, right? Did you know at that time that I was really into karate?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I was really into karate. And nobody tells you when you first start practicing karate in your 40s that by the time you approach your 50s or have had your 50s, you're probably going to start having hip issues. That's exactly what happened. It turned out to be kind of sort of a benign thing, but I really was having trouble with my left hip. Like I couldn't walk. So I knew I had to choose between, you know, my life and karate. So I decided to stop practicing karate. And I felt like there was this huge gapping hole in my life. And even my master didn't know there's so many different kinds of Tai Chi in the world and suggested to me, why don't you try Tai Chi, Jessica? It's very slow, but it's very powerful. I think you'd be really good at it. And one of the gyms I was working at, there was a Tai Chi Chih class there. I saw that third little word, but I didn't really think to ask what it meant. And, you know, I just walked in thinking I was going to a slow-mo martial art. And honestly, like from the very first class, I just knew there was something there that I hadn't known I needed. Most powerful forces really are the soft ones, like water, wind, time, circularity, you know. And there's a lot of hard stuff in the world, you know. The biggest lesson I think I've taken from Tai Chi Chih is there's often more power in being soft.
And that goes contrary to what a lot of people, at least in the United States, would think. Usually it's go heavy or go home. No pain, no gain.
And actually, it's one reason why adding Tai Chi Chih to a high-level athlete's training schedule is often a game changer. Because another thing in this country we simply don't honor is the value of rest. Like, how often have you had a client show up and they haven't had enough sleep? And then they're basically asking to destroy their muscles rather than grow them. I used to sometimes send people home if I knew they were, you know, skimping on their sleep. They'd get mad at me, but I was doing them a favor, right? But often what happens is if you add Tai Chi Chih into the mix, in many ways it mimics a lot of the benefits of sleep, you know, but it's also very energizing. It actually qualifies as low-level exercise, although from, you know, when you're doing it, you don't feel like you're exercising. You never have sore muscles. You never feel tired when you're done. In fact, usually you feel more energized. It's sort of, it sounds completely woo-woo what I'm telling you, but it's deeply, deeply, deeply scientific as well. It basically, it's like acupuncture with no needles. That's really what it comes down to. It works on in the same ways.
What you do is you work with veterans. How is that different than working with the public if it is? And I also wanted to ask you, are you involved with the VA, and what is that big monster like if you are working with them?
Good questions. Okay, so working with veterans in many ways is just like working with anybody, and in some ways it's completely, utterly different. Yes, on paper, I am a contractor for an arm of the VA called the Community Care Network. And I got recruited for that in 2019 when the VA suddenly realized, oh my gosh, the research on Tai Chi is so overwhelming we can't ignore it. We're going to put together this great program. We're going to select like 200 of the country's best instructors. Here we go. And what I didn't know at the time was what the Department of Veterans Affairs wants and what the VA medical centers, which is sort of like boots on the ground, will support are often two entirely separate things. So even though in many ways Delaware is a very progressive state in terms of the kinds of services that are available to all kinds of people, not just veterans, this state simply does not support that program. So for the first couple of years that I was doing this work, I was basically just doing it for free, and I couldn't figure out how I was going to fix this thing, but I was kind of drilling down further and further into the VA and veteran zeitgeist. And then one day I woke up and I thought, wow, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different outcomes. So I guess I better change the way I'm doing things. So I decided to create my own program. So that's what I'm doing now. And people from anywhere in the world I actually have a couple people from Europe who come quite often. And the other thing that's really fantastic about what I'm doing now is there's no just cumbersome paperwork, and you don't have to answer all these questions, and you don't have to make appointments with your doctor and then hope they'll write the script you ask them for and then follow up and then, you know, all these things. So I'm really, really grateful to be doing that work. And the reason why it's very different working with veterans than with regular people is, I don't know if you know this, Joe, but veterans are 6 times more likely to die by suicide than in combat. It's just a crazy number.
It's insane. I know, it's horrible.
They're just, it's something about our culture. We we simply don't know how to prepare people for reentry into regular life, and they just don't know how to make the transition, and it causes everybody in our military community to be much more vulnerable to all kinds of, first, chronic mental conditions, and then that, what starts in the head doesn't stay in the head, and what starts in the body doesn't stay in the body. So all the mental stuff often translates into horrible, blinding physical stuff too. So when I'm working with veterans, I'm often dealing with three things, sometimes at the same time. They're just feeling very isolated and sometimes not mentally well. They're often feeling physically very unwell, or they're dealing with injuries that are just, untenable. And they crave that esprit de corps that they had when they were in the military, although they're very happy not to be in the military anymore, but they crave that esprit de corps. So our classes become very familial. Like at the end, I often say, I love you guys like family, and I really absolutely mean it. When somebody comes to my class, I feel very honored that they're curious enough about this to let me show them. And I know that I'm making a big difference in their lives because they tell me so. So I feel like I'm holding this very special population in the palms of my hands. I feel very grateful for this work, so grateful. But I feel some of the same ways when I work with regular people too.
It gives them structure that maybe they no longer have from the military.
Yeah, we're dealing with, what we're really doing is I'm showing them a moving mindfulness practice. And all the research on mindfulness is just overwhelming as well. Like, there's even been quite a great deal of hard science indicating that practicing mindfulness will help you almost train your well-being, like you're learning a new exercise or a new skill, right? So even if all I ever do is give someone a few moments of just being very aware of certain things that they would normally pay no attention to, like in the present moment, and not condemning themselves or their mind wanders, because that's what a human mind does, we're still winning. But, again, all the research on Tai Chi Chih indicates that the more you do it, the higher the likelihood that the good feelings you have in class are going to seep farther and farther and farther out into your regular everyday life too. So yeah, and right now I'm actually involved in a research study looking at the connections between being a long-time Tai Chi Chih practitioner and being more mindful even in your everyday activities. So even just being able to focus on exactly what's in front of you and not worry about what happened before, how unpleasant that was, and not even be thinking about what may or may not happen in the future, that's a gift, right?
It is. It definitely is. And it makes sense. Moving your body, or we know your muscles make chemicals called myokines, which have a whole bunch of different effects, maybe even improving mood. We know exercise improves mood. So I think it's a great idea. And if I heard you correctly, you're no longer involved with the VA because of all the red tape. Did I hear that correctly?
On the books. I still have a relationship. I actually just renewed my certification the other day. Mostly, I think it just lends to my credibility.
Okay.
But I'm certainly not putting all my energy into that. I'm putting all my energy into doing my own thing. Yeah. And you just talked about all the positive snowball effects of exercise. I mean, when you're doing Tai Chi Chih, even if you're very stressed out when you begin, from almost the minute you start, it starts to send signals throughout your body that, everything is fine here. Everything is fine here. And all the feel-good neurotransmitters and hormones, they start to just circulate throughout your body. And even if you don't intend to feel better, you start feeling better whether you like it or not. It's scientific. It's not just woo-woo.
No, I agree. I've taken your classes in the past, and I was A, surprised at how challenging they could be, and B, I did feel better after taking the class. I felt good, and I wasn't sore, as you said. But yeah, and I think for people who think, Tai Chi, no big deal. No, it can be challenging. I learned that very quickly. So no.
Anything new is challenging, right? You have to build up a neural pathway.
Right.
So it just takes repetition.
But most definitely. What have been some success stories that maybe you can share with people that have taken your classes? Have they given you any concrete feedback? Hey, I can do this better, or whatever, or my mental wellness is better.
Yeah. Actually, one thing that I started doing when I was first involved with the VA program, just because I thought it might be a good idea, was I started taking both quantitative and qualitative bits of information from each one of my students every 5 sessions so that I could see on paper they were improving, right? And I actually used a couple of tools that the VA commonly uses. There's a pain scale that many doctors will offer their patients when they walk in, and it just has happy faces, sad faces on it, and where are you today? It was developed by the VA and the Department of Defense. So I use that. I use a questionnaire that goes along with that, and then together with a bunch of the other teachers, we developed a third questionnaire that asks where you are on a scale of 1 to 10 on what are generally considered the contributing factors to PTSD and suicidality. Like, how well do you sleep? What's your balance like? How's your chronic pain? You know, all these things. What's your, you know, how connected do you feel to other people? Those kinds of things. And then underneath that, we developed a few questions that we only ask like every 15 sessions or so, where people answer in their own words. And some of the feedback that I've gotten over the years from some of my students, it's something that I'll, you know, always be grateful for. I have a student that I can think of right off the top of my head who was a victim of military sexual trauma and really didn't feel safe around anyone when I met that person, and that's why we had to work one-on-one, but now they're very comfortable being in classes. I've worked with a couple of people up to within a couple of months or even a few hours of their death. There have been opportunities to work with people in ways that I never thought would have come to me as a personal trainer and a nutritional counselor, right?
Very fulfilling.
Very fulfilling.
And you mentioned nutrition. What are some of the biggest struggles people deal with who come to you who have nutrition issues?
You know what? There's so many really great certifications out there in nutrition now that I really try to stay very clearly in a very narrow lane. I only coach people to eat food as close to its original packaging as they can possibly pull off. There's so many really weird pseudo foods out there on the market now that don't even, when they hit the gut doesn't even know, is that food? Like, the gut doesn't even know. So all I'm really doing is helping people just improve the flora and fauna down there by eating very whole food and eat more vegetables. Like, that's a really big deal. In a lot of neighborhoods, like some not even all that far from where I live, it's easier to buy liquor than lettuce. It just is, you know? So, I mean, you and I both love Juice Plus, and I love their research is so great, and I've taken a lot of information from that. If everybody ate somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 to 13 servings of vegetables every day, oh my gosh, there's no way out of your health improving under those conditions.
Yeah, I agree completely. And you know, I start my day with a big smoothie with his vegetables and fruits. I'm even putting Brussels sprouts in my smoothie now. And as I've said before, if it tastes like chocolate, I put chocolate protein powder in there. I can eat anything: lima beans, broccoli, spinach. But yeah, it's blueberries, all kinds of stuff. But you're right, and I do it because if I eat like a hamburger later that day, if I'm going to a baseball game or something like that, at least I know I got some Brussels sprouts, I got some spinach, I got some broccoli and blueberries in me. I did something good, and there's a lot of fiber, which I think I know you know this, but you know, like 90-something% of Americans do not eat anywhere close to 1 ounce of fiber a day, which is like the minimum. So. Yeah, I see online, and I don't know why, but I'm being
You're
targeted.
getting more water too in the smoothie, and now so many people are dehydrated; they just don't even know.
Yeah, I agree. I had a friend who came to me a while ago. He's like, I get these headaches all the time, and I'm like, dude, you are dehydrated. He's out in the hot sun. He's building his business. He's painting. He's doing all kinds of stuff. He hasn't. And I'm like, when's the last time you peed? In the morning. I was like,
what color was it? Blood red? You know, like really.
He literally was dehydrated. Once he started drinking a little bit more water, the headaches went away. So,
it's great.
And a lot of times the simple answer is the correct answer. You nailed it. You know, eat more veggies, eat more fruits, drink more water, move more, and I think we'll do a good job with that.
It's so easy, and in fact, I think most people find that working with me is so much easier than they ever imagined because I always hit on the basics. That, you know, if you're just covering the basics, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't take a lot of fancy supplements. And, people don't like that I say some of these things, but I've been investigating them for 30 years. And there's some good supplements out there, and there's a lot of them that you just don't need. And like a lot of the green drinks, I got a question about the other day. What's the best green drink? Why don't you make your own green drink? Throw some veggies in a blender and drink that. Or again, mix it like I do with protein powder and make it taste, less like Brussels sprouts and more like chocolate. So
I love Brussels sprouts, actually.
One
of my favorite things is a raw Brussels sprout salad. I love that.
I know, people love them. I won't eat them, but I will blend them. And
Smooth them.
I know there's a lot of Brussels sprouts lovers out there. I know them, but I'll put them in a blender and I'll drink them.
Yeah. Well, that's one reason why I teach a smoothie making class, because it's actually, I think, a very easy way to get people to eat more veggies is throw them in a blender and maybe throw in an extra fruit or two until you can start to crowd some of the fruits out, and then slowly but surely eating more veggies. But it's just a great way to kind of stealth in the veggies. Like you turned me onto the lima bean thing. I love lima beans in my smoothie. It just improves the taste. You don't taste the lima beans in there.
And I love eating them too. Unlike Brussels sprouts, I like lima beans, but I'll put them in a smoothie too. I like them. So switching gears, you've been a personal trainer. Well, again, I think you came to my class 20 years ago, so a long time. What, if you can look back, what's the biggest surprise that jumped out at you in terms of fitness and health and the public after you become a personal trainer? Was there something you said, holy mackerel, I had no idea X?
I'm going to say something that may not be popular with your crowd.
Say it. That's why I asked the question, because a lot of people, they become personal trainers and they pass the test and they think, and I've seen them online, I'm blah, blah, blah certified, ask me anything, but they don't really get the sometimes the rubber meets the road stuff. And that's why I like asking that question. So yeah, even if it's a inconvenient answer, bring it up.
So maybe as long as 10 years ago, it occurred to me that the gym is an industry and it may not have your best interest at heart. And I say that, I mean, it wasn't 10 years ago, because I worked at the YMCA for 14 years, and I always consider the Y one of the best places to work because it's so family friendly. Yeah. But in the end, it's still a big box gym. Mm-hmm. And if all the people who belong there showed up at once, there'd be no room. I think in many ways, many gyms hope you won't show up because they'll make more money if you just have all the subscriptions going on and nobody in there. I also think there's a very popular myth out there that you need all this fancy equipment to get and stay fit, and that's absolutely not true. All you need is your body, right? I mean, TRX might be a really good thing, a ball, but you really mostly need your body, and you just need to move it. You walk into a gym, and what do you see along every wall? TV sets along every wall, right? And they're usually tuned to CNN or some sort of news channel, right? And the reason why, I mean, I understand the reason why the gyms make that decision is because they feel like the news is more benign than some of the other things, and people are less likely to, there you go, you know where I'm going with this. There's some research out there that talks about how watching the news can increase your fear.
Yeah.
Right? And when you're exercising, you're becoming more neuroplastic. So which means you're opening your brain to the possibilities of more information coming in. At the same time, you may be frightened by watching the news. I mean, I just think that the whole thing together doesn't spell health to me, I think if everyone just got outside and moved their body, we'd all be a much healthier culture, Right.
I agree. And the news is also a business, and you're going to put me on one of my many soapboxes. They hire super hot, sexy girls to keep us men tuned in. They focus on the same 3 or 4 stories 24 hours a day. None of them are positive. Nobody wants to talk about firemen taking kittens out of a tree. It's a fire, it's a murder, it's some other horrible crime, or it's politics. Insert your politician of choice, whatever's the hot name of that day that they're going to throw in that name. It's an industry, and it bugs me. I stopped watching the news Really, about 5 years ago, I just turned it off. Even local news. If it's a big enough story, I'll hear about it on some social media platform.
Yeah.
But I stopped watching it because I got tired of it. Same story. And again, it was make you afraid. That's why we saw the COVID counters. They're all slanted left or right. Very little of them is center, which is what most of us are deep down. So thanks for the opportunity of speaking and venting.
Well, we're on the same page about that. I think most Americans judge their success by the number in their bank account.
Yeah.
But I think a measure of my success is how many people feel healthy, happy, peaceful, safe, or at least secure that they're going to be able to deal with whatever's coming their way when they're hanging out with me or when they're doing something I told them how to do. Right? And you feel good when you drink a smoothie. You can feel yourself feeling good. You feel good when you exercise. You feel good when you do Tai Chi Chih. When you watch the news, you don't feel good. You can feel your blood pressure rising.
Right.
You can feel your anxiety rising.
I agree.
So, why would I send somebody into the gym? I stopped training in the gym quite some time ago. So I'm glad that I didn't say something horribly out of the blue there.
No, I've had a problem with the news industrial complex for a long time. Hey, switching gears again, what is an underrated skill outside of the exercise science that everybody learns that personal trainers should know about to help them stand out amongst all the others? Because everybody teaches the same thing, bicep curl, bench press, and muscle fiber type and all that jazz. But is there something that's kind of outside that you've learned in the real world that'll help personal trainers?
I don't know if my answer is going to help all personal trainers, but I will tell you what has been the magic formula for me. Again, I feel like most of my clients would tell you that I really listen to what their goals are and what's going on with them, and I meet them where they want or need to be met. So I feel like a lot of people get into personal training because they're just really, enthusiastic about exercise, they're really good at working out, and they just want to do something that they're already really good at, but they're not all that great at stepping into someone else's shoes. With some shame, I will admit that a whole bunch of my first clients all had shoulder issues. And at that time in my life, I have actually since had quite a number of shoulder issues, which are all resolved. But at that time in my life, I had never had a shoulder issue. A couple years down the road, I separated my left shoulder, and I suddenly realized what a horrific injury a shoulder problem can be. And I, as my old-fashioned Southern mother used to say, I got religion at that moment. And I realized you have to tune in and really listen to your clients. So I think that's the one thing nobody tells you about in a book, except maybe your book, because your books are great. But nobody will, when you're in school to be a personal trainer, very few people talk about that. They'll talk about how to fill out a PAR-Q, what are the 6 pillars of movement, that kind of thing. What are the joints? What are the soft tissues? What are the muscles? What are the bones? All that stuff. But they don't talk to you about how to get into the shoes of your client. I think that's really, really important.
I think what you said is really important and undervalued in the fitness industry. True story. I'm just surfing around the other night and I come across this personal trainer who's describing what happened when another trainer worked with a 68-year or 70-year-old man who's done nothing. And in the very first session, he's got him doing like step-ups, like a foot high, and he's holding on to a medicine ball above his head and weird stuff. And bottom line, the man ends up blowing at his knee and has to go to the doctor, and he's got some problems now. And here's a guy who didn't do anything. And that trainer, whoever he or she was, didn't meet that client where they were. They were a novice. They had no business doing multiple step-ups. Why? What's the goal with this? And why are you holding a medicine ball above your head? And why are you even doing step-ups, holding a kettlebell? For somebody who's never done anything before, that is illogical. And I'm being nice because this is G-rated, but you gotta meet that person where they are and put yourself in their shoes. And I think for some trainers who are maybe younger, I think that's difficult to empathize with somebody who's 60, 70, 80. You can't train an older person who's a beginner, like a 20-year-old person. That physiology is different. They repair differently and slower, and that's not something you usually learn in the book. So I'm really glad you brought that up.
And their soft tissue, it's just not going to track right along with their muscular growth, and they might have, brittle bones. I mean, there's so many things. I think, as far as I'm concerned, the worst thing that a personal trainer could ever do would be to hurt their client.
Yeah.
It's almost like we should take like a Hippocratic oath. First of all, do no harm. Never, ever, ever hurt a client. But a lot of personal trainers, they're just out to kind of show off what they can do, or they can't empathize, they just don't know, or they're immature,
I think it's a convolution of things. Don't know, and again, not maybe knowing the physiology as well as they should, but also if you are working in that gym, personal training session, 30 to 45 minutes, and that unskilled personal trainer who's just certified and hasn't worked with a lot of people, they want to do the best job they can do, and so they try to maybe squeeze as much into that small time frame as possible, increase in the intensity more than maybe they should at that moment in time, accidentally triggering an injury. You'll never be wrong doing less. If you do more, then that can be an issue. But if you do less, you can also always tighten that up if you have to, if you think it's in their best interest. But yeah, it's something I wish more personal trainers thought about. And again, on a totally different scope. And I have been told on the private end by personal trainers that sometimes the managers of gyms will say, beat them up on purpose, make them sore on purpose. Because if they're sore, they'll think they're out of shape and they'll keep coming back to us and we'll make more money from them. And again, that gets into the whole gym industrial complex. I've heard that on more than one occasion. I don't know how prevalent it is, but that is deeply disturbing if it goes on.
Yeah, and there's some other issues going on in a gym environment, like sometimes the gym will actually schedule the personal trainer's appointments for them just like back to back. I mean, I think that should be almost like a therapeutic hour so that it's only a 45 or 50-minute training session so you can write your notes.
Right.
So that you know where to start. How can you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been?
Yeah, you got to have at least 10 minutes between clients.
You've got to. And you have to have bio breaks yourself. You have to eat. Sometimes I think the trainers are just exhausted. They have 8 hours of clients a day. They're tired.
It's a very difficult thing. I did an interview a while back, about a couple months ago, with Jessica Maurer, who also deals with another topic that a lot of people don't talk about very much, and that's the mental wellness of personal trainers. And she made a great point. We train alone. We're isolated. And what does that do to us long term, which will lead me to my next question for you. How do you deal with your own mental wellness? Because you're out there, you're putting your most emphasis into people, you're trying to help people. How do you stay steady going forward?
I am so grateful for Tai Chi Chih. I can't even tell you how grateful I am for Tai Chi Chih. There is a subtle difference between teaching it and just doing it on my own. But if you think of it, I get to do some aspect of Tai Chi Chih anywhere from 5 to 25 hours a week. And when I'm doing Tai Chi Chih, and by that I mean teaching it or doing it, nothing in the world bothers me. It's like a mental vacation for me. And I often feel physically more energized when I'm done than before I started. Like, I have a Wednesday night class. It's actually the only Tai Chi programming in the whole state of Delaware for veterans after work hours. And I'm often quite tired at the end of the day when I go to do it. And I always feel better after I'm done than before I start. Always, always, always. I can't even imagine what my life would be like if it weren't for that. So to me, I walk the walk. I walk the talk is what I mean. I talk the walk. You know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say. To me, I feel as if I tell my clients I want them to do this, and I'm a walking example of why it's good. That's another thing I would absolutely urge a new personal trainer to do, is find some sort of practice that helps you and your clients get their head out of their head, right? And make sure that you impress upon your new clients the value of that right from the get-go, so that your personal training clients have something to balance that out. you know? And then they'll also have something that can keep them healthy and well when they're dealing with the stress of, you know, if you're running from place to place, that can be tiring.
Right.
The one amazing thing about this lifestyle, I wonder if you feel the same way about it that I do, is I haven't been bored in over 20 years, not even a single moment, not even a single day. Absolutely no boredom. And that was not true when I had corporate jobs. I would often be very, 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 very bored. So it's a very exciting lifestyle. It can be tiring, but it's a very exciting lifestyle. And if you have all the things in place to balance it out, you don't even need to worry about offloading your stress. It's already built in to the system.
Yeah, that's a good point. And since you mentioned you're teaching Tai Chi Chih classes, and you're maybe not teaching traditional aerobics classes, but is there a tip that you would give instructors who are teaching any group class on do this or don't do this before class? Like, for instance, I asked one person, and she said she'd give a great tip. She's like, go to the bathroom.
It's actually, I do that, yeah.
It's a genius.
I teach her outside. Yeah. A couple of classes I teach her outside and there's no bathroom. Yeah, do that. Go to the bathroom. Have a snack before you eat, before you work, you know, so you're not hungry. So I really love one-on-one fitness. For people that really want a group experience, I have a couple of friends with whom I've been actually in some cases working with for years and years and years that I will refer them to. If they want to do virtual group fitness, I refer them to my friend Jen. If they want to do small group fitness in like a tiny little gym kind of setting, I refer them to my friend Nicole. On my website, you'll see I call them my amazing associates. When it comes to Tai Chi Chih classes, I do teach a wide variety of people. Like sometimes I have folks that wouldn't sit down if their life depended on it. They're very prideful about the fact that they're mobile enough to stand. And then I have people in the same class that couldn't stand up if their life depended on it, you know? So I have to be able to meet both their needs at the same time.
And since you do have your own business, is there any advice you would give fitness trainers who are like, hey, I want to go self-employed, I want to start a business? Is there some things they should think about before starting your business, or things they should be considering as they create their business? Liability insurance, LLC, etc.
You must have liability insurance. You can't afford to risk going without liability insurance. And actually most places that you might work, other than for yourself, won't let you work unless you have it. There's just no way around that. You have to have that. You need to really think about whether or not you can afford to pay all the bills before you do this thing. The psychic income for this kind of work, Joe, you can't put a price tag on it. Right. You can't. You just can't. But psychic income doesn't keep the lights on. Right? So that's another thing. Make sure that you are charging what you are worth. You are sending a signal, whether you know it or not, when you don't charge what the going rate is for something, you are sending a signal that you are subpar. And there's a huge myth out there that things like nutrition instruction, personal training, or even just fitness, or certainly Tai Chi Chih isn't worth paying for. Baloney. If people do everything that I ask them to do, they might not be seeing their doctor.
Jessica, this has been a great conversation. How can people find out more about you, reach out to you, and your website, etc.?
Yeah, the website, that's the hub. Everything comes together right there at the website. It's very organic. I have all kinds of information on what I do there, every kind of information on what I do specifically for a veteran population. I have blogs, I have people and things that I recommend. I have, you know, videos and all the links to all my social media channels and all that stuff right there. So it's, the name of my company is Sculpt Your Life, and that's spelled the way you would expect it to be spelled. So it's www, of course, Sculpt, and that's spelled just the way you'd expect it to be spelled. But then the middle part is just UR, and then life.com. But again, just Google me and I pop right up.
I'll link to it and everything down below in the description, so they'll have no trouble finding you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You're my favorite people.